Alright, hey Dr. Sparrow, just to give you context, I am over here I haven't found my dog. I'm over here in an apartment complex where he's been spotted, just kind of hoping he wanders around before it rains. Well, thanks for understanding and letting me present like this. Unfortunately, I don't have the slides in front of me, but I'll try to guide you, and you can look at them simultaneously. Let me know if I should change anything. The review of the test manual is the first slide. It's simple to use and understand. The test is simple to use and understand, so the manual follows suit. They address existing literature, the big one being age. Basically, the test isn't really as useful for older kids past the teen years. This test is used more commonly for adolescents 12 and under. Other tests like the VMI are used for the adolescents and the adults. They acknowledge and address specific information, limitations. They also ignore some limitations, so I'll point some out, whether they're just theoretical or actually important. I used a rating system 3 out of 3, but instead of stars, I used Donkey Kong throwing a banana out of a go-kart driven by Diddy Kong, so 3 out of 3 of those. The next slide should be the normative data piece. The next 2 slides, the first one should be the one of the US. So you can see they divided it into 4 countries. 4 regions. In Texas, they took us seriously because they tested in dumbass Texas. I highlighted that on the slide. So N equals 2008. They were tested in 38 states. The ones with the little circle dots are states where the TVPS was tested. That's 52.84 per state. In 80 cities, that's 25.1 per city. I don't know if 50 kids per state really satisfies an amazing sample, but it's better than most tests try. It's better than just getting people from Minnesota. The next slide, hold on. So about the states again. 12 states are not tested. So is it valid in the whole U.S.? I don't know. If you cross a border to Mexico, is it still valid over there? Who knows? Is it a first world validity, or does it apply to third world countries too, with different values and whatnot? I think in our case, yeah, the TVPS, visual perception, is not a skill that changes with state to state or country to country. So I think it's safe to assume that while they didn't specifically address those things, it still might be a valid test. The next slide further breaks down the numbers. So it goes off of the 1990 U.S. Census data. You can see things, gender, they kind of got it spot on. And representation, minorities, not so much, but they did try, and they're good approximations, so there's that. They didn't ignore it. The region-wise, they got it pretty spot on. Rural and urban was not really accurate, but I don't think being rural or urban really influences, again, on visual perception. And the most interesting one, I think, was education, again, showing that even though there's people from different classes, that's not really going to help visual perception at all. It has nothing to do with it. It might give you access to more tools to address whatever your issue is, but it's not really going to help. And the last thing here, the test is ages 6 to 13 were most frequently tested, but you can kind of, if you look at the distribution, it looks about the same. Again, the test not being so valid for the older kids and adults. They don't even test it with adults. So next slide should be, say, table 7.1. This is item reliability. So we're looking at Spearman, Bowman. That's item analysis, and we're looking at coefficient alpha, which is internal item consistency. we got all the subtests here and the whole test. So we're looking at the subtest: visual discrimination, memory. Oh, sorry, I was interrupted by somebody asking me about the signs of the dog. Okay, so we said the subtests, right? Visual discrimination, memory, spatial relationships, constancy, memory, figure ground, and closure, and then with the whole test. So we have a bunch of strong correlations here. Spearman, Bowman ranging from 0.76 to 0.88. Coefficient alpha ranging from 0.75 to 0.88. And for the whole test, we got 0.96. So pretty strong items on this test. They're reliable for measuring visual spatial issues. The next slide would be about test retest reliability. Only 42 kids were tested, so that's a question mark in my head. Why not more? Out of 2008, you have only 42. But they were tested twice, 21 days apart, for an overall correlation of 0.97 as scores, the raw scores of their first time taking the test and the raw scores of the second time. So that's another question mark. These charts all use raw scores instead of standard scores, but I think it's acceptable in a test as simple as ours. But it's probably always better to use standard scores anyways. What else? The bottom two charts look at mean, median, standard deviation, and range between the two times they took the test. There's some similarities, but the bottom line is that they scored similar, although maybe they performed differently on different portions or different items of the test. Our next slide here should be concurrent validity. On the slide it should say evidence of validity. Should be table 8.1, and we're looking at the TVPS being correlated with the VMI, visual motor instrument. Now, the TVPS was developed as a companion test to the VMI, so it's kind of like comparing yourself to your brother. You're obviously going to have some similarity. So, little question mark there. Why didn't they compare it to other visual instruments? They compared it to the total VMI, but the VMI has a motor component and a visual component. The TVPS has no motor component. That's a big part of it. So with that in mind, the correlation for the visual component, 0.67, is a much better number to look at than the correlation with the motor part, which is only like 0.35. And the correlation with the whole test is obviously somewhere in the middle between those two things. But yeah, why didn't they compare it? It's strong correlations, but why didn't they compare it to other tests? That's probably the biggest glaring question out there. And the last slide is construct validity. It should be table 8.5. So are we really just measuring visual perception? Well, so far to what we've looked at, yeah, we can say that we're measuring visual perception, or at least components of visual perception. We don't really know exactly. Maybe they're missing some components. Maybe some components can be taken away that don't really matter for visual perception. But we know we are measuring elements of visual perception, and that is pretty generalizable so far. Oh crap, it's starting to rain. Hold on.